It's time on the Friday night sports show for us to move to Super Netball. After the conclusion of AFLW, resident expert in Karl Carrington, who covered the AFLW for us, has joined us for Super Netball this season. Hey, Karl, how are you?
Very good, Wayne. Pleasure to join you.
And it's really exciting, Karl, because we've got Super Netball, and across this competition, this is going to be a really exciting 14-game season.
Yeah, it definitely will be. There's plenty to be discussed. There's plenty of local names in our network area that'll be featuring heavily for the sides in the Super Netball this year, and it'll be interesting to see how some teams bounce back and if the Vixens can retain their premiership.
Yeah, and of course the West Coast Fever, they had some salary cap breaches, almost a little bit like the old days of the Adelaide Crows with Kirk Tippett and all that. Some problems there at the Fever, and as a result they start the season -3 games. How are they going to go?
Yeah, it's obviously a massive blow. There's no doubt about that. I do still think they'll still be a competitive outfit, for sure, but it might just hamper them and might just make them exclude from finals and not feature in the finals. Obviously, it's an 8-team competition, so the top 4 play finals, and they might just finish in that 5th or 6th spot and miss out because of this disadvantage that they face at the start of the year.
Yeah, they were runners-up from last year's grand final where the Vixens were able to beat them in that season. But let's take a look at some of the other key reasons why this is such an important year for our best players. They want to get selected in the Australian squad because in 2023 we have the World Cup of Netball coming to Australia, and the Diamonds will be certainly looking at who the good players coming out of this season.
Yeah, in 2027, Wayne, I'll have to correct you. The players will be coming here for the Netball World Cup in Sydney to be hosted there. So yeah, there's a lot of pressure on the current players and obviously future prospects as well that are training partners on some of these lists across the country to really make a name for themselves and hopefully push for selection.
Yep, certainly the actual title I was thinking of is the South Africa hosting what will be a really important lead-up to that event. Now, let's have a look at the teams because we've got the Adelaide Thunderbirds, led by the girl from Woodner in South Australia's country area, and Hannah Petty captains this group. They're coached by Tanya Obst. Can they get themselves off the bottom of this table because they've been down there for a long time?
Yeah, they've really struggled the last few years, and unfortunately I do think they'll struggle again this year, even though they're led by their captain and cult hero in Hannah Petty, who's been on their list for 5 years and is just coming into her prime in the next few years. So she'll galvanise the side and be able to put in some good performances, and will definitely be in Australian contention, as we mentioned. But yeah, I see the rest of her teammates probably not being able to replicate what she can demonstrate on the court, and yeah, they'll be struggling, the Adelaide Thunderbirds.
Okay, the Collingwood Magpies. Is there anything to get excited about for these girls, coached by Nicole Richardson and led by their skipper and their absolute defensive wall in Jiva Mentor?
Well, I think that's what they can get excited about in Jiva Mentor. She is probably one of the best goalkeepers in the league, and she's proven that over the last few years. So yeah, they'll really be hanging their hopes on her having a very stellar year for them to push for finals.
Khalifa McCollum comes from Trinidad Tobago. Look out for her to nail a lot of goals. The Giants out of Sydney with Caitlin Bassett, who is one of their very best. It's got Julie Fitzgerald at the helm. Bassett is now no longer on their books, and they brought in Sophie Dwyer and April Brownlee. Now, can the Giants get into the finals?
Potentially. I do see them finishing in the finals positions, especially with Sophie Dwyer and April Brownlee both being elevated off their training partner. So they've got their list, which they run with most weeks, and then they've also got training partners who can be moved onto the playing list. So with both of those names coming into the fourfold and playing regular games this year, then anything's possible for the Giants. Okay,
the Vixens premiers look like they're are going to be a good side. Tegan Phillips, Caitlin Twaits and Simone McGuinness are amongst it, and they are really, really solid. But in your article, I noticed that you've got a girl called Sasha McDonnell, and she comes from out of Edenhope, but down in the southeast or southwest of Victoria.
Yeah, sister of AFL players Tom and Oscar McDonald. So very sporty family, that one. And yeah, she'll be really a key part of the Melbourne Vixens in their bid to defend their premiership. I do have them finishing 4th and sneaking into finals just because of the key retirements to some of their personnel that they have had, and they're really key pillars in what they were able to achieve last year.
Excellent point. The Swifts from New South Wales are going to be one of the sides you think are going to make the top placing. Tell me why you picked the Swifts to go number one.
Well, they run brilliantly. They've got an excellent history of playing finals. The last few years they've been right up there. And also their captain in Matty Proud and their co-captain in Paige Hadley are really stellar players in that mid-court area. So they'll be really competitive.
Queensland Firebirds, you're looking at them in second place?
Yeah, I am. With this addition of Kim Revalian, I thought I'd get that name right,
yes, good.
Hopefully, who's the partner of Adam Treloar, the Western Bulldogs footballer. She's obviously just had a baby, so she's coming off maternity leave. So she'll be bolstering that outfit, and she's a star-studded addition for them. Yeah,
Sunshine Coast Lightning, you reckon in third? You've got them above the Vixens.
I do, yeah. I think their shooting and their mid-court play will probably guide them into the finals positions.
All right, the West Coast Fever, you've said earlier, down the list, but still with a pretty good side. Janelle Fowler is going to be one of their best shooters, one of the best in the country right now. Good to get your comments on this each week. We're going to follow through on the Super Netball, and Karl, you're our correspondent for Flow News 24 on that. But also, I'm going to ask you about your AFL fantasy because I know nothing about it.
I've been waiting for this.
I know that Jason said to me, just ask Karl how many points he's behind me at the moment.
Yeah. Well, he's just trying to stir me up because I am a few places behind him.
Yes.
I'm sitting in 17,000. So
really?
Yeah, mainly because of injury. So injuries to key players in Dustin Martin and Josh Dunkley. So they're real key pillars in my side, and they've gone down with injury. So yeah, that's why I'm struggling.
Okay, who are you bringing in, and who are you getting rid of on the AFL fantasy?
Yeah, well, those two players have to go because they're injured. So they're no good sitting there not playing for me. So I'm bringing Jack Zeeble, North Melbourne. Sort of defensive halfback swingman, I suppose, that he's become now for the North Melbourne Roos, and also Christian Petrarca for Josh Dunkley. So he's one of the premier mids, getting a lot of the ball, so he'll be hopefully scoring well for me. Okay,
it sounds like a good plan. Not Riley Thilthorpe from the Crows?
No, I did have a look at him, but he's just priced in that sort of 300 to 350 mark, and he's a ruck, so I can't really fit him ahead of Brodie Grundy or Max Gawn because they're sort of premier rucks in the AFL fantasy and the real competition.
Yes, well said, Premier, but I reckon Riley Thilthorpe could become a Premier player just based on his first game.
Absolutely.
Good stuff to talk AFL fantasy and also Super Netball, which Karl Carrington will join us with each week here on the Friday Night Sports Show. Thanks, Karl.
Cheers, Wayne.